You're good at that. So welcome to episode 13 of our epic hunting in Alaska video series. I hope you've enjoyed the films. Certainly it's the most epic hunt of my hunting career.
And mine too. It's been a long way there and a long way back, and here we are, all done and dusted.
And here we are at the end. Now, for me the trip is, I wouldn't say once in a lifetime, but certainly it's a defining point in my hunting career. Not only was a huge amount of preparation that we put into getting ready for the trip, as it was for you, Steve. I know that you lost, what, about 3.5 stone?
Yeah, I lost a couple of pounds along the way. Started training in April.
Now, you don't see that on the video series because that all happened behind the scenes as we're going. But it was such an important part of planning for the trip and getting ready for the experience that we were going to have. The conditions were challenging, one day sunshine, next day rain, next day snow. But I learned a lot about myself, learned a huge amount of skills. And that's not just from being in that environment, but also the people we were hunting with.
Yeah, they were very knowledgeable guys. It's like the packing out that we had to do to make sure that everything is utilised, accounted for, the paperwork. It's just one big learning curve from the minute you get there to the minute you get back, really.
What we tend to do is pick the deer up, throw it into a tray, stick it in the
Take it
truck
home.
and then bring it
Yeah,
back.
well, you can't really do that with a moose.
Not with a moose, no, that was pretty challenging. But what we did find is that the work we put in before we went and our equipment selection made the trip enjoyable and allowed us to deal with all of the scenarios that we found ourselves in, whether that be changes in weather conditions, long-range shooting, the environmental factors such as river crossings, huge wet alder bushes all over the place. And funnily enough, this list that Tony sent through to us before we went was pretty much cock on. So when Steve first came to me and said he wanted to go hunting in Alaska, I said, no, you
crazy.
don't. I said, you're a nutcase, it's, you're too overweight, you're too unfit, and don't believe the videos. When you get out in that sort of environment, it's tough, and he put the work in, and
We did it.
so what I thought we'd do today is go through some of the equipment that we used that I think really made our trip. Of course, we both have our own choices when it came to the rifles, but the rest of the equipment we used was the same. Steve, you chose the Blaser R8 Professional and 300 Win Mag, so kind of run us through a little bit how you got on with that rifle and why you picked it.
Blaser, it speaks for itself. It's a hell of a good rifle. I like the way that we can pack it down, put it in its case, the way it returns to zero from when we left the UK all the way over to the States through all the baggage handling and everything else. It's nice, lightweight rifle, like I say. All the parts coated, so we didn't have any issues with the environment. Just a really good all-round rifle. Loved it.
But I've shot a Blaser R8 Professional before on a lot of my international hunting trips in 300 Win Mag, one of my favourite calibers. But my choice this time was the Sauer 404 Synchro XT. It is a thumbhole stock, which I'm not usually used to. I quite like a sporter stock, but it's the level of adjustment that's available through the cheek piece that I found quite useful. It's got a weatherproof coating on the action, although I did see a few rust spots here and there. So we got into the habit when we got back to camp at night of stripping everything down, drying it all out, making sure the gun was clean. And to be honest,
Just normal housework,
yeah,
really.
I don't think it was a problem for us because, to be honest with you, it gives you an opportunity of checking that everything is still in working order. And when you are taking long-range shots and you're shooting at dangerous game, knowing that everything is as it should be, it gives you that extra confidence. I like the bolt action. It's got that safety catch system which actually cocks the rifle much in the same way as
Exactly
the
the same
does.
as the Blaser, yeah.
So there's no danger of accidental discharge. Of course, our muzzle awareness is very good, but there are times where just having that extra layer of safety in, goes a long way to making sure that everybody stays safe.
Yeah.
On top of that, we had the Hawk Frontier 30 5 to 30 by 50 scopes. Now, I have quite a few people ask me, well, how are you getting on with scopes? Why have you got a cheap scope on such an expensive rifle? Well, actually, it's not a cheap scope. It's 600 quid, which to me, I still think is quite a good amount to pay for a scope. Of course, it's not, £2,000 like some of the German and Austrian stuff. But we used it over Andrew Vanable's WMS firearms training. We were shooting at 600 yards consistently. And it's the return to zero function that I found particularly good. It didn't matter whether we dialed for 100, dialed for 400, back to 300, back out to 400, and it kept returning to zero.
Yeah.
And when you're shooting at those distances, which we were in Alaska,
Yeah, we were.
the only comparable landscape I can imagine is right up in the Highlands of Scotland, where you do have hill-to-hill type shots. So the ability to be able to shoot over those distances and the trust in your equipment is absolutely essential. So it has a glass etched reticle, 21 layer multi-coated optics, monotube construction, so it's nice and rugged, nice grippy magnification adjustment, which is good for gloved or cold hands. So it also has extra long eye relief. It's about 5 centimeters, which is good for magnum calibers. When you're focused on the animal and you're in and you've got that sight picture, often you don't pay attention to the rifle. And if there is a big kick, as you can get from a 338 Win Mag or 300 Win Mag, that scope can travel back and can scope you. You also had a couple of additional bits for your rifle. The Spartan Javelin bipod and sticks. Tell us a little bit about those.
I love the Spartan equipment. It's really lightweight, very, very strong. It's there if you need it, but it's not there to get in the way of everything. It's not attached to the front of the rifle like some bipods are, especially when you're going through alders and you just need everything away.
I call them as gimmick sticks because, you know, everything kind of slots into each other, but you seem to work out with them really well. You know, you've got the tripod system, which is incredibly strong. You know, we were hanging the rifles and the binos and our clothing off it when Steve wasn't using it for shooting.
And I took one of the legs off, used it for the walking stick when we were packing out, and it was fantastic. I take them everywhere with me. I absolutely love them.
It's all about working out a system that works for you. And
yeah,
and
well, you wouldn't
shoot.
be without yours, would you?
No, and unfortunately I've got my Vanguard B62s there that 8 years old, 10 years old, something like that. They're held together with this really nifty looking repair tape. I think they're about ready for an upgrade, but to be honest with you, I've got some real sentimental attachment to those sticks. I've hunted with air guns, with rifles, with just about everything in between. They're nice and simple. I don't have to think about them. I balance my binos on the top of them when I'm glassing. I can just put the rifle straight in. No matter what rifle it is, will fit straight into that groove there, and I know exactly what they're going to do. They're also good for use as walking sticks when I was carrying the moose meat and the rack back. If I didn't have these sticks to get me across fording the river, I'd have been swept away and I'd have ended up down in the Squentner River somewhere. These are probably at either end of the scale. My Vanguard B62s are about 60 quid, but obviously your Spartan sticks they're a lot more sophisticated and have a price tag, you know, that's
accordingly, don't they?
Yeah. But once again, two different solutions, but equally effective in the right hands. So both of these rifles we were shooting Hornady Superformance SSTs. Now Steve's 300 Rim Mag was 170 grain bullets and my 338 was 225 grains. Now we had a lot of conversation before we went about what the appropriate caliber was for the destination. I've shot a lot with 300 Win Mag and I really do rate the caliber. However, this time I chose a 338. Now you had a little bit of, wasn't sure which way to go.
No, I'm glad that I chose the 300 Win Mag. For its practicality, it's got more functionality for me, the 300. It did the job over there. It put everything that we shot at on the floor. Very, very happy with it. It's a bit more punchy than the 338, I think. The 338 is more of a shove than a kick. But like I say, you just carried a bit more weight in your bullet, didn't you?
Yeah, and I'm glad I did. As I say, I do enjoy the 300, but the 338 just had that extra punch out at distance. You know, it brought down the moose with one shot. That Caribou at 406 yards, you know, it was out on its feet and dead before it hit the ground. And in that environment, having something which is capable long range and has that extra 55 grains of knockdown power at the end of it, I was really pleased. And I've used it subsequently for wild boar hunting and various other bits and bobs. So it's a great caliber. The ammunition performed perfectly. Exactly the same as a scope. I knew and was confident every time I squeezed the trigger, that bullet was going exactly
where we needed it to go.
The crosshairs were. Yeah. And that gives you so much confidence that you don't need to worry. You're absolutely sure that the end result is what you're going to be expecting. The rifles, the scope, the ammunition, the accessories, I think they all came together perfectly. But then there's also the binoculars. Now we spent an awful lot of time, hours and hours, looking through these Hawk Endurance binoculars. They're a middle range binocular from Hawk. But I have to say, you know, considering all the time and all of the hours we sat on the side of that mountain
and what we put them through, they were fantastic.
They're fog proof, they're shock proof, they're waterproof and dust proof and all those sorts of things. But really, when you're sat on the side of a mountain in a wilderness environment, you're going to spend a lot of time glassing. You do the work with the binoculars, but you don't have to put quite so much work in on your feet. And for the money, they're absolutely incredible. I used a 12 by 56, Steve used a 10 by 56.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit longer in terms of the reach, but Steve had a slightly brighter sight picture. But you know, I have to say, I didn't have tired eyes, I didn't have headaches. We could drop them, we could get them wet, but once again, performed incredibly well. Historically, I've used a set of Zeiss 10 by 45 range-finding binos, but these 12 by 56, less weight than a 10 by 45, but without the benefit of the rangefinder. So binoculars, once again, did a huge amount of hard work for us. The clothing was a bit of a revelation. There's two different types of clothing we're going to have a look at. The first bit is the Sims G3 guide waders. Now, when I got through on the list, you need a set of fly fishing waders.
Yeah.
I thought,
seriously?
What are you talking about? But no, Tony said, if I were you, I'd bring these. And thank the Lord we did.
Absolute revelation. These have been fantastic.
These G3 guide waders, a waist wader, they're just like trousers. But when you have constant river crossings and you're going through willow and alder, which is typically up to your waist, everything is constantly wet. that 5-ply Gore-Tex layer that keeps you dry. It is breathable, so you sit there long enough and you can see the vapor starting to come out of the waders and you're dry once again. They're stocking feet and they fit into these wading boots. They have pretty good tread.
They were fantastic, weren't they?
Pretty sticky as we were crossing
they were good. They were good. We climbed a long way up in those as well, because they're a lot bigger than your normal boot, obviously with the neoprene foot as well. They're a bit bigger, a bit heavier.
And for climbing, for river crossings, for going through thick, heavy, wet bush, they were fantastic. But of course, they're a specialist bit of gear that you may not use every day, but certainly we'll be taking them back when we go to Alaska and on our next trip. So those were a game changer, and certainly if you're going to that sort of environment, worth looking at. But there's a deer hunter clothing that really was pretty amazing. Now, we had the choice of anything we wanted from the deer hunter collection. They've got some pretty sophisticated, technologically advanced garments, but we went pretty basic, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We started off, and this is the clothing system we used, a greenock base layer, man-made fibres. On top of that is a Dunbar insulating layer, very thin fleece that zips up over the top. If it got colder still, then we had a Cumberland quilted jacket and the vest, which I'm wearing now. I pretty much wear it every single day. On top of that, an Avanti fleece jacket, which I used quite a lot at the time when we were stalking with the backpacks on. That would have dealt with just about any type of weather condition. I'd say down to about -5 to -8, somewhere around there. I don't get that cold, so typically I was wearing the base layer and the fleece, but if it did get a little bit cold, like when we went to Caribou country.
Yeah, first thing in the morning when we were just making coffee or whatever.
This is roughly £100. It's not an expensive jacket, but allowed us to make the choices as to which layer we decided we wanted to wear. We needed to keep things nice, lightweight, because everything needed to go into that Mystery Ranch pack over there. So coming over here, you can see how it all went together. Sometimes if we were out in the tundra, we wouldn't need to wear the Sims G3 guide waders. These are Cumberland Pro trousers, waterproof. They've got knee patches, but also they're nice and lightweight, so they're very breathable. As you can see here, the base layer is this greenock with the Dunbar over the top, and I would say probably the best waterproof layer I have ever used from any item of clothing from any manufacturer in history, which is this Deer Hunter Track waterproof smock. Now, as you can see underneath here, it buttons up, so there's plenty of airflow. You actually put your arms into the jacket, and then the rest of it hangs down by your sides. There's a big deep hood here. I got absolutely drenched on the outside, and when I was sweating from the inside when I was packing out, this had enough airflow that it could let the sweat escape.
It let you breathe, didn't it?
So it had the best of both worlds. Now I know, Steve, you used the jacket version of this.
Kept me dry, even though I was bent over doing a lot of boning out and a lot of work on the animals. The only place really it got me was bent over under the arms. It did let go a bit, but absolutely fantastic. Lightweight, dried quickly, and your body heat did dry them out to a certain extent, and you were ready to go again the next morning.
When you have a breathable membrane, if you put any pressure on it, it can push water through. So having these strong patches on the shoulder meant that it wasn't seeping through and water wasn't running down my back. And also there's a similar patch on the seat here, so if you're sitting down in your glassing, it doesn't permeate through and make your saddle wet. Overall, a great item of clothing. That and those G3 guide waders and this layering system, when you look at the amount of money people spend on some of the more technically advanced gear, and it wasn't anywhere near as capable as the garments we have in front of us. Get yourselves your own gear and make your own decisions for yourself. We're just saying what we found, and I'm sure you see from the footage, every night we came back to camp, we went through the system. You do hang them up and they dry very quickly. What I tend to do is I tend to wear my clothing in the tent, get in the sleeping bag, and it dries off by itself. So the clothing was all fantastic. And then the packs. We used the Mystery Ranch Marshall. We took it everywhere with us. It's a little bit on the weighty side, but it carried every item of equipment and clothing that we took with us into camp. Much to Steve's dismay, I would not let him take anything that didn't fit into that pack. Main reason being, if we camped and we had to move camp somewhere else, we needed to make sure that everything that came with us went. He originally turned up with his pack full of gear and another day pack. You had to leave your book and your camp shoes, didn't you, mate?
I did, and I was a bit distraught about leaving my camp shoes. Ian didn't leave his camp shoes, funnily enough.
Because mine fit in the pack. I live by my own rules. It's just that I think Steve, because his clothes is so bigger than mine, then the space that I made up, just managed to squeeze some camp shoes in there.
Yeah, but when we did get to the bush plane to fly out there, the pilot went, "Is this all the gear you guys got?" And he was expecting suitcases and all manner of things which other people have told him. No, we just turned up with our Bergens and our rifles.
More than enough space in here to fit all of the equipment. As it happens, I don't think we took anything that we didn't use.
I think we could de-layer some of the stuff that we took. I took various things that I wouldn't take again, but everything you see on the table is a must. Just little things that when you've got them on your back, you know you don't want to carry.
Every ounce makes a difference. So don't take something on the off chance you might use it. You will make do. That is one thing for sure. So the Mystery Ranch pack was great. Once we got it tuned in and fitted to ourselves perfectly, it spread the load really nicely. We filled it up and we took it around Carsington Water, which is a local reservoir here, 8.5 miles, nice rolling countryside. We were confident that we could carry it as long as we needed to. And then this little baby next to it, this is brand new, but Mark McGuinness, our guide, he had one of these Alaska Gear frame packs from Barney's in Anchorage. And I have to say, what an amazing piece of kit. We took the Marshalls just because that's what we were recommended to take, a pack that large. When we took all of the equipment out and all of our clothing, it spread all over the tent. Even though it's in stuff sacks, it's still a bit of a problem trying to keep things clean and dry. What I'd probably do, and certainly we're going to look at next time, take a duffel with a similar sort of capacity, leave your gear in there. It can be strapped to the pack if you do need to move, but the chances are you won't. And then take a frame pack such as this. Much more efficient at carrying out skins and meat than the pack. The pack is good, but you've literally just got the bag that you stick inside, and everything within a week smells of death. Whereas this pack, you can just take it out, hose it down, dump it in a stream, and it's all clean. Now, if you go to Barney's in Anchorage, they will fit you up specifically to the pack.
It will fit you to your pack. It's half the weight of the Mystery Ranch when it's unladen.
And it looks cool.
It does look
Which is
cool.
also important. But I can strap my sticks onto the back. I can strap my tripod for the spotting scope onto the back. We can get a dry pack at the top there for taking things like your survival kit, the food that you need in the field, additional waterproofs, maybe an additional base layer. But when you get to the game and you're out 4 miles from camp, you can still pack some meat back on that trip. A very versatile bit of kit, and for something so simple, I think the guys at Alaska Gear have got it absolutely nailed on. And the last bit of equipment is from Jetboil over here. It's actually quite simple and straightforward, but it's kept us warm and happy throughout the trip. Mark McGuinness bought one of these. It's a Jetboil Sumo, which is just a little water boiler. But when you're cold, wet and miserable,
there's nothing nicer than a cup of tea.
All of your mountain house, boil your water, coffee, you boil your water, oatmeal in the morning, you boil your water. So you don't really need much else for a 10 to 12 day hunt. You will need to take a water purifier or water filter system.
Yeah, which we did.
Because even if you do fetch water from the creek,
which does look crystal, but that creek comes from a long way off that mountain. You don't know what's died further upstream. So you do need your water purifier, which fills straight up into the flask. It wasn't a chore to use. The cooking water, like I say, boiled everything thoroughly. You don't want to get sick while you're out there, do you?
No, you want to try and avoid every way possible that you can pick up any bugs or any diseases. So there we have it. Now, I know that doesn't seem that dramatic. Most of the equipment here is pretty standard stuff. Base level rifles, the scopes aren't expensive. The equipment we've chosen, I think, is accessible, and it's the stuff that we use most days when we're at home.
Everything you've got on this table, really, apart from the big backpacks, we take day packs when we're hunting at home.
The packs here and the waders we wouldn't.
Everything else.
You use your R8, but you just put a 308 barrel.
Yep.
I use my 404, but I've got a 308 barrel. I use my sticks, you use your gimmicks, same binos, same layering system, same Hornady ammunition, and we use the Jetboil for making coffee on the tailgate.
We do.
So I would just say to you, before you go out and spend huge amounts of money on buying equipment that you might not actually need, look at what's in your own cabinet. Yeah. Look at what keeps you dry, you comfortable, you warm, that's lightweight, that you're happy to take with you. Other than a few bits of specialised equipment, as we have here, the stuff you use every day is perfectly capable of keeping you safe, dry, warm and comfortable in a wilderness environment. Harvesting 7 tags out of 8 in basically 12 days of hunting was pretty insane. Some of that is obviously down to luck. To shoot a grizzly bear and 2 caribou in the same morning within an hour of each other, I'd say is unusual. But work with your guides and work with the outfitter. They want you to be successful, but set yourself up to succeed. Don't turn up there out of shape. Don't turn up there without knowing your equipment, without fitting your pack to you, without getting all of your gear in there and going out for a walk. This is your hunt of a lifetime. Of course, they'll work as hard as they can when they're out in the field, but take some of the pressure off them. We were getting up early in the morning. We were fetching the water, tidying up round camp, getting breakfast ready, so that when the guides came to us, they were fresh and ready to go. Because you need him to be on point. You need him to be focused. And the more weight that we could take off his shoulders, the better he performed, which meant the better our hunt went.
You've got to put the work in. It's no good pulling the trigger and heading back to the tent. You've got to set to. You've got to get the work done. Otherwise, instead of being hunting again for a different animal in 2 days, you're going to be a week down the line by the time that guy has got all that meat back to where you can get it off the mountain.
I enjoyed packing out just as much as I did the hunting anyway. It just felt like you were part of the hunt, and it legitimised for me harvesting that beautiful animal, because they are magnificent when they're out there in the tundra.
You've seen things that most people will never see or do, but we were lucky enough to do it, and I was glad I was mad enough to turn up one March afternoon and say, we're going to Alaska, mate.
That day will live in my memory for a long time. But once again, I hope you've enjoyed the journey. I hope you've got some inspiration yourselves to go and do something amazing. It's a big world out there. There's some incredible scenery, some incredible environments, there's some incredible people. Give yourself the opportunity. We're going to be going back. We're already planning our self-guided trip this fall, which is going to be a bit exciting. So we're going to get out there, we're going to set up our own camp, get our own tags, we're going to pick our own area, and then hopefully we're going to harvest a couple of animals. But now we're going to show you a little bit of our favourite parts of the hunt. So sit back and relax, and we're going to run through some of our favourite moments from our epic hunting trip to Alaska. So look at that for a morning. It's our last day out in the field, day 15. It's day 14 of the hunt, day 13, 12 days into the hunt. Day 11 is day 10.
Day 9 of the trip, day 8 in total of being in Alaska.
Day 7, day 6, 5, 4, 3 of the hunt. 2. Day 1, first morning of the hunt, Heathrow Airport Terminal 2, all checked in and ready to go.
It's just like Top Gun, mate. Boom. Mr. Harford, there he is, looking all happy and smiling. I am ready for a shave.
Are we close enough together? Do you want Wildy to stand a bit closer to me? Because I just feel like there's some distance between us. We must look around. Steve was already in bed. We had to get him up. We had to wake him up. Now you can
go back to bed.
Now you can go to bed. We're trying to keep everything as close as we are to camp. Make packing out a lot easier.
He's very considerate about my poor old knees.
Yeah. So Wildy's had the next best idea, which is
Coffee. Take us that long to get to Starbucks and back, so.
it's your round.
Oh man.
Yeah. So thanks for wandering and following us.
Oh yeah, thanks for...
Appreciate it.
No worry.
Good food, great accommodation, fabulous hunting, dodgy company. The conversation quality has been diminishing in recent days.
Very hard to believe that anybody's as charming as me.
Yeah, I'd say that.
What would you say, Mark? Very hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Could have said anybody but.
Feel kind of naked without my rifle.
Yeah, you still look very handsome, though.
And so do you.
Thank you
I like
very
your little
much.
beard. It's very, very nice. Like that. Ready to go.
Wildy's ready to go.